Good old days, always so good. Well, I remember polluted skies back in the 60s. Ramez, you talked a little bit about where we were and where we're going. What, as a co-chair of energy at Singularity University, you showed some dramatic graphs, as I recall, showing how things have changed rapidly in terms of the cost of electricity, the cost of energy, and that's going to change everything just like it's already changed in the last 40 years. What do you see kind of going forward for energy?
Well, we're seeing this incredible change with solar, especially. The price of solar panels has dropped by a factor of 200 over the last few years. The cheapest solar deals in sunny places like the Middle East or Chile or Mexico are half the price of coal and natural gas. So we've always assumed that clean energy would be more expensive than dirty energy, but now it looks like over time it's going to be the cheapest energy you can buy.
And it stays cheap. The nice thing about that is that's something you put in the ground and it stays there, and it's, you're not having to put inputs into it, right?
Yeah, that's right. So a solar grid or a battery system is technology, right? The cost of energy goes up and down, it fluctuates, but the cost of technology, like these things, it only goes down. So the cost of solar is going to get cheaper, and once you've paid for it, it's there and it's running. You don't need to fuel it again. It just goes.
And it really changes the nature of the grid.
That's right. Now we have a small number of large power plants, and you're going to have large solar power plants, but you're going to have thousands upon thousands of different points where we're generating solar power or wind power. We're going to have batteries on the grid to integrate that. It makes the grid a lot more flexible and distributed.
And the panel you were just on, I think there was a comment on there about, in the late 80s or 90s about mainframe computer makers were talking about the PC, and I think it might have been you who mentioned this. Is this a similar kind of point in time?
Yeah, that was, I think, the Audrey, the woman next to me from AMS, and she was saying, yeah, in the 1980s or 90s, if you had a panel on the future of computing, you might have talked about what the next mainframe is going to look like, not knowing, maybe the 70s or the 80s, not knowing that PCs were around the corner, and then in the 90s, you would have talked about the future of PCs, not knowing that these things were going to be the majority of computing. So I think right now, when we think about the price of natural gas or even a nuclear plant, we're ignoring the rapid change happening in things like solar and batteries and electric vehicles that are plunging in price.
And it's going to impact more than just the energy that you have in your home. It's going to impact our transportation and everything, right?
That's right. So electric vehicles, even 3-4 years ago, they were luxury items. Now you've got the GM Bolt, you've got the Tesla Model 3, $35,000 car. That's the same price as a Camry, but it performs, this electric vehicle, like a Porsche, and it's a luxury vehicle. So electric vehicles are going to be cheaper and better and more luxurious and more fun and more automated than the old gas cars.
It also kind of strikes me, it seems like they're a lot simpler. Obviously, there's a lot of software and but there's just not as many parts as you have an internal combustion, right?
That's right. I showed this picture on stage of the entire drivetrain of an electric vehicle, and it's a flat base and some engines at the wheels. That's all there is. So it has 90% fewer moving parts than an internal combustion car. So lower maintenance costs, and it's going to be cheaper to manufacture when it's at similar scale.
That's huge. And then another kind of recurring theme on this seemed to be software, whether it's the car like that or it's distributed energy. That seems to play a huge role.
That's right. I mean, a Tesla it's a computer on wheels. You get software upgrades, you get new features just overnight when you own a Tesla, just show up in your car. And the same thing for managing the grid, managing these batteries. We're going to have software that knows when to fill up the battery at your house and when to drain it and how to integrate these different sources of energy.
It seems to me a lot of the concerns about reducing carbon are just going to happen because of these technologies. Is that a true assessment? Or?
Well, the technology is an awesome tool, but the policy still matters. You have to make a choice that we want to do this. If you've got an existing coal power plant, it'll run for 40 years. That's how the cost is structured out. So if we need to close that early, you've got to make a choice to do that. But fortunately, if we do, the solar's getting cheap, the wind's getting cheap, the battery's getting cheap to take up that slack.
Yeah, the economics certainly seem to be there. So I really appreciate your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.